After a safe week one in NFL Survivor polls that saw all of the top 8 most popular picks prevail, we'll discuss and debate the 7 games you should be considering for week two, and it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Aaron Dean, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants.
Hey, welcome everybody. And Dean, you're doing a much better Michael Wiley impersonation than Michael. So glad
Ah,
Michael's traveling the world. So
yes.
um, I can't wait. This is a big week two to talk about. But before we get into the week two games, we got 7 that we're going to break down. Any big takeaways you had for week one?
Yeah, I thought all the games were very entertaining. That Buffalo Baltimore game was crazy insane. It was a fun way to end a Sunday afternoon. But I was kind of shocked actually in one of the games that we kind of tossed around a little bit. I was afraid to take Cincinnati because Cincinnati, I think, wrecked about 75% of all the survivor pools last year in week one when they couldn't score anything. And this week, I think, I mean, Cincinnati should have lost that game.
Yeah,
Cleveland,
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, a short field goal missed, an extra point missed, 2 Flacco interceptions that were tipped up,
Yep.
fluky things, and they lose by 1 point. So the
Yes.
question is Cincinnati that bad or is Cleveland that good?
I thought Cleveland's defense was very good. And I don't think that Cincinnati has an excuse that their offense, started sluggish because they didn't really get a lot of time in camp because Joe Burrow didn't miss any camp this year. And they played actually during the preseason. And I felt like they, of all teams, were ready this year to start hot. But Cleveland's defensive line made it very, very tough.
All right. Well, hey, I just want to remind everybody if you'd like to support the show, please smash that like button, share your week two NFL Survivor pool pick in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that big red subscribe button. Let's go through, Aaron, the 7 games they should be thinking about for week two. Baltimore is a massive 12.5 point favorites at home against Cleveland. Then we have 2 road teams that are 7.5 point favorites: San Francisco at New Orleans and Buffalo at the New York Jets. Arizona is a 6.5 point favorite at home against Carolina. The Rams, 5.5 point favorites at Tennessee. Detroit is at home and they're 5.5 point favorites over Chicago. And the game I want to start off with, the Dallas Cowboys are at home, 3.5 point favorites over the New York Giants. Look, if you're not picking the Dallas Cowboys this week, I'm not sure when you will pick them their entire time. This is by far their best game. Aaron, they look pretty good on Thursday night, so they're coming in with extra rest playing on Thursday night. What do you think about this game?
I agree. They looked more than pretty good. I was actually stunned at how well they were coached. They were dealt a pretty well, both teams were dealt a raw hand with having the delay, and that's never easy to come back from that as well. But I just felt like Dallas, with all the noise surrounding that franchise this summer with the Micah Parsons and all the other stuff that goes along with that, and Jerry being Jerry, I felt like Schottenheimer, of all the coaches that he could choose, was probably everybody's least favorite on the list. And yet, I felt like they were the more buttoned up team, to be honest with you, than Philadelphia in some respects. I don't know. Did you find that the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I did not think this game was going to be very close, and this came
Mhm.
right down to the wire with CeeDee Lamb just not able to corral a couple of those passes late that may have made the difference. And on the other hand, the New York Giants just looked terrible. That
They did.
offense just didn't look very good against the Washington Commanders. What are your thoughts about this Giant team?
Yeah, the Giants didn't have anything to offer other than a really awesome defensive line. But that offense was so putrid, and they actually have some weapons. So, Russell Wilson to me just looked really, really old.
I gotta say, this comes down for me is how big is your pull and how many teams do you have to pick for the entire season, right? a lot of pools are one game a week. That's 18 weeks. I'm okay not be, Dallas is probably not one of the top 18 teams in the NFL, and I'm okay. But if
Mhm.
you're in a league where you're going to have to double up on picks to later in the year, it's at least a consideration.
You know, I don't think though that Dallas is going to be one of those 4-13 teams though. I think that they might win 6 or 7 just because I feel like the coaching is not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. And actually, I felt like it was pretty good. So they're going to win a decent amount of games. You might be able to select them maybe in the middle of the season somewhere where there's a spot where you think that that might roll well. And if you don't, they're not going to really kill you on a 4-13. They might be more of a 7-10 type of team.
Well, I would encourage everyone to take a look at Dallas's schedule, and
Mhm.
I want you to find for me those
Mm.
4 or 6 wins. They may get it, but my point is, I don't know if it's predictable. Like, I don't
Sure.
know if you can point to a game and go, yeah, I feel I can put my survivor life on Dallas that week. I'm worried that people will put in comments, "Where's Cincinnati? Why didn't you put Cincinnati on the list? Because they're a higher favorite than Dallas." We already talked about it. I put in a notice of no confidence in Cincinnati based on the fact I thought they got outplayed by Cleveland, and Jacksonville actually looked pretty good against
They did.
a bad Carolina team. So I'm not picking Cincinnati, and I'm also not picking Detroit, who got just completely overmatched by Green Bay. Now, it may be because Green Bay is just this stellar team, and Detroit now gets to come back at home to play Chicago, who really looked like they were going to beat Minnesota on Monday night. But I'm out on Detroit and I'm out on Cincinnati. Any interest in either of those teams from you?
I like Detroit in this matchup. And the simple fact that I like Detroit is because they're still a very good team. They have a lot of good players. Obviously, they're rebuilding their offensive line. They have a couple new a couple new coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinator. It was week 1. There's a lot going on. They're playing arguably the best team in their division. And so I kind of felt like giving them slightly a hall pass in a sense that you always see it in the NFL when you have a really good team and they get embarrassed, meaning they didn't do much of anything really good, like other than just walking off a bus without tripping, right? But they come back the next week, and what do they usually do? They usually win. And I kind of feel they've got the motivator there, the head coach. I feel like he's going to rally the troops. The coordinators make a few adjustments. Chicago's not great. Caleb Williams at times looked very flustered against Brian Flores' defense last night. So I kind of feel like I think Detroit wins this game.
Yeah, well, I think this is great why you got two opinions. So we're going to disagree on this.
Hmm.
I want to see it's kind of the we what we saw so far was not good from Detroit, and after losing their coordinator, I want to see this team come alive. All the weapons are still there from last year on offense, and maybe what the doctor ordered was the Bears. So
Hmm.
we'll see. All right, so now we're going to talk about the other 5.5 game, and I need you to talk me out of this because I am intrigued by the LA Rams, who really on defense just completely frustrated CJ Stroud, has dominated their offensive line, their defensive line did. And now we play Tennessee. And over 2 shows, I can see that you like Tennessee a lot more than I did. I enjoyed rooting against Tennessee. I didn't enjoy rooting for Denver though. They
No, they were
frustrated the
terrible.
heck out of me.
Hmm.
But their offense could do very little against Denver's defense, and the Rams I think have also a pretty good defense, but a better offense. Here's my big question, then I throw it to you: is Puka Nakua, who came back in that game, so he should be fine, but I'm going to be watching the news very carefully. Is it look like Puka Nakua is 100%? There's no issues with him anymore, and I at least consider this game for Survivor.
Yeah, I know. I understand all the points that you've made there, and I'm not going to disagree with any of those points, other than the fact that Brian Callahan is a very good coach. I felt like he had them pretty buttoned up. They couldn't do a lot against Denver's defense, but I will say that I feel like Denver's defense, both on the maybe not, they're probably even on the defensive line, but I feel like Denver's back end is better than the LA Rams back end of their defense. And I think Cam Ward, as we go along the season, they're going to pick against Tennessee, and that's when Tennessee is going to go on their roll. But I feel like this team is good enough. Simmons was reincarnated. He wreaked havoc on that defensive line for Tennessee and really caused a lot of problems for Denver. And I kind of feel the Rams, they're not the best offensive line either. So, I kind of feel like if you can get into Matt Stafford's face a little bit, make him a little uneasy. He's old, fragile. He's one hit away from, being out of the game. But you're right. It comes down to Puka Nacua. A fighter who, is in the ring and they're like, yeah, his right eye doesn't really hold up all that well. And it's easy to it's easy to cut. I feel like he's going to deal with this all season long because that helmet is going to constantly be pushing it up and down, maybe rubbing. And you could have something where it's constantly reopening and it becoming a distraction for him.
This is very important for people to remember, and probably one of the key reasons why I probably will not pick the LA Rams for week 2. Look at the future value. It's not that the Rams have a ton of future value, but it's when they have their future value. Week 9, they host New Orleans. Clearly the best game as it appears now, 7 weeks ahead, to go that week. You're going to wish you had the LA Rams. So for that reason, I'm probably out.
I agree.
So Arizona, 6.5-point favorites at home against Carolina. Wow.
Oh man.
I watched Red Zone. I was forced to watch that game for what felt like 6 hours because of the rain delay. Still got to watch this stupid game. And what was consistent to me is that Carolina defense cannot stop the run. Last year, they gave up 3,000 yards. That's over 167 yards. And they gave up 200 rushing yards to Jacksonville in week 1, right? And you go, well, what happened? I thought, didn't they address it? Didn't they turn it around? Well, they spent 3-year, $45 million contract on Tershawn Wharton, who got injured. Yeah. He's out 2 to 4 weeks. He will not play in this game. So I'll note that as one of the major concerns I have about Carolina's defensive line and how they stop. I think Arizona can run the ball between Kyler Murray, Trey Benson, and James Conner.
I agree there too, and I also say that the one hesitancy I have as well is Bryce Young is dealing with a lot of inexperienced weapons on the outside, a rookie wide receiver, a couple no-name guys that have been thrust into the mix into the starting rotation as tight end, wide receiver combo. Right? They still have Chuba Hubbard, but I don't see them really running too much on the Arizona Cardinal defense either. And, if the Saints, they kind of hang their hat with Alvin Kamara. They kind of kept him moderately in control. And I think Spencer Rattler, by all accounts, had probably, I'm going to go on record now and say had the game of his career. Because I think it's going to go downhill from here, to be honest with you. So there's way more value of picking, I think, against New Orleans, like you said, down the road. But I just think Carolina is just a hot mess right now.
Yeah, I like that you said that Bryce Young was suffering from poor receivers. He's also suffering from suckiness disease.
Well, he's got a poor offensive line, too.
He had a good end of the season last year, and it gave us hope. But the reality is, 80 to 85% of his career, he has not been good.
No.
And he did not start off good in week 1. So, look, you got to consider future value as well. Arizona doesn't have a lot. The only thing in week 6, they host, Tennessee, the team we've been talking about. There are other games, there are other teams that are decent that week as well. But what's sneaky I like about this pick, you and me, Aaron, didn't pick Arizona in week 1. So
right.
I think it's going to be the pick popularity, both because there are 3 other teams that are favored by more, and the fact that some people picked them already. So you have the advantage of pick popularity being lower. So something to think about. Let's talk about these two 7.5-point favorites. Now you're getting, at least statistically speaking, if Las Vegas knows what they're talking about, which is always a question, of really high odds to win. San Francisco and Buffalo. I'm going to dispense with the Buffalo pick. I'm out. Why am I out? Uh, Future value. And I know a lot of people don't like using future value because they say, you don't know what's going to happen way in the future. I'm not talking about way in the future. The next three games, they host uh, Miami, who was
Mhm.
awful, New
Yep.
Orleans, who everyone agrees is awful, and New England, who didn't look very good. You're going to want to use them in one of those three games. So I'm out this week.
I agree. And I also feel like even though Buffalo played a home game, it was a very emotional game against, a very heated rival in Baltimore. It came right down to the wire. It was like by far the most exciting game of the weekend. To really the next most exciting game, to be honest with you, was probably the Jets game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I feel like there might be a little bit of a letdown for Buffalo, and it's a division rival. Um, Justin Fields played out of his mind for the Jets, but I really was shocked at how well they were able to run the ball. And that kind of seemed to be Buffalo's little kryptonite because Derrick Henry did not have a problem until he fumbled the ball. But, up until that point, the dude was a beast. So I'm with you. I'm out.
Yep. They have to travel to New York. Not that it's
Yep.
far, but
No.
it's going to. Um, so let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers, 7.5 point favorites at New Orleans. It's like what you said, Aaron. This New Orleans team, I'm not ready to say they're any good, but I was surprised Spencer Rattler played
Yeah.
a lot better than I
Mhm.
I could. But here's my point. I'm passing. You know why
Mhm.
I'm passing? Because San Francisco can't. They don't. They may not have Brock Purdy.
Mhm.
They won't have George Kittle. They
Mhm.
won't have Brandon Ayuk. They probably won't have Jawan Jennings. I mean, oh, let's just wait to use San Francisco when they're healthier. Is my point.
Exactly. You can't. At some point they're just going to take Christian McCaffrey away because that's how you're going to be able to beat this team, and that's if Brock Purdy plays. So you can't throw it to Christian McCaffrey 30 times and then Ricky Pearsall, the other 15 and win the game. I still think that they win the game, but it'll because of defense, not because of their offense. And it might be a really, really low scoring game, like a 10-3, 10-7 kind of game. And nobody wants their survival pick being that close, where it could be one fluky play with a pick six, a tipped ball, and the guy's a scoop and score. And the next thing you know, you just lost your survival pool when there was so many other better options to pick.
Yeah, and I want to warn people, even if Brock Purdy plays, he has a non-throwing shoulder injury and
Right.
a toe injury.
Yep.
So is he really going to be at 100% even if
No.
he plays? And you got to consider that San Francisco has one of the weakest or easiest schedule in all the NFL. So
That's where the real
they,
value is.
yeah, so look, here are the teams they host. And it all happens before week 15. So it's not like these games are at the tail end of the year. They host Jacksonville.
Mhm.
They host Atlanta. They host some of the teams we've been talking about picking on, Carolina and Tennessee. I'm sorry. I am not picking San Francisco and I'm not picking Buffalo. Anything else about those two games?
No, I think we've hit that one pretty good.
Well, tell us a little bit about the game which has the highest popularity. It's the highest spread. Baltimore, who has to be seething after that loss, 12.5 point favorites at home against Cleveland. What do you think?
Okay, so funny. I think this has the propensity of being the biggest blowout of the week, even though I just said in the beginning of the show that Cleveland really surprised me. And yes, they should have beaten a Cincinnati team that's very powerful on offense, but they can't really stop anybody on defense. I feel like Baltimore's defense is not Cincinnati's defense. And so Flacco is going to go up against his old team, but I still feel like they don't have the offensive weapons to match Baltimore blow for blow. I mean, arguably, you had, the former MVP, the reigning MVP in the NFL, I mean, duking it out on the field, swapping TD after TD. And I don't think if they ever got in a big race, that Cleveland can keep up. I do think their defensive line will keep them in the game for a little while, maybe the first half. Like if you were going to bet this game, maybe bet, Cleveland take the points in the first half. But in the game, though, I think Baltimore wins out and really just puts it away.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that Baltimore won't win this game. They're by far the better team. For up to about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Baltimore way outplayed Buffalo in their own home turf, and there's no comparison between Cleveland and Buffalo. So I like that. The So if you have the attitude, I'm going to go on record that you had to pick a team that you were most confident will win this week. My pick is Baltimore. Now I happen not to be like they're 12 and a half point favorites and some of these other teams are 7.5. It's not that big a difference for me, right? But look, I go Baltimore because they're the ones, if they're the ones I believe that's most likely to win. But folks, that's not Survivor. I don't know what that is. That's just, what gives me the best chance to win this week, but that's not Survivor. You have to also consider future value and pick popularity.
Yeah, I
And
think
yeah,
I think the only reason why somebody may choose Baltimore, like you said, I really feel like of all the games, this is the one that probably is going to be a non-sweat game. It might be close in the first half, but it's not going to be close in the second half. And if somebody is still on the fence about not really getting a really good idea about like what teams are going to be like and they want one more week, this is your pick. But you're going to waste, like you said, it's about value and survival pool. And it's about taking teams later down when somebody doesn't have Baltimore anymore and you can take Baltimore in week 11, you're feeling pretty confident about yourself. So,
if you're doing a Survivor with just your buddies and there's like seven of you,
mhm.
I can see the wisdom of picking Baltimore. But if you're like most people that you're in one of these massive pools with hundreds of people or even thousands of people or close to 1 million if you're on the Yahoo free pools,
Mhm.
and this is likely to go the entire year, and especially if you're going to have to go double up picks down the stretch, it's hard to argue that the Baltimore is the pick. Again, you may pick one of these other teams, they'll lose, and you go, see, I shouldn't have, because you
Mhm.
will run a higher risk of losing this week if you don't pick Baltimore. I want to be clear on that. But here's the problem. And here's another argument to pick Baltimore. Their future value isn't immediate, like Buffalo.
Right.
Like,
Right.
right? So you're like, okay, you probably are not going to pick Baltimore until week 8. And you go, well, what's going to happen? What if Henry gets hurt? What if, worse, Lamar Jackson gets hurt, right? And then Baltimore is no longer the superstar. But you got to play the odds.
Mhm.
Um, and just take a look at this. Week 8, Baltimore hosts Chicago. Week 11, they're at Cleveland. I think this may be an easier game at Cleveland in week 11. And some of you guys are going, that's stupid. They're at home. Wouldn't they rather be at home than on the way? I think by week 11, Cleveland's going to be such a bad record. They're going to go, why are we playing Joe Flacco anymore? Let's throw one of our rookies out there. And we're looking more at getting a good pick at the end of the year. Agree or disagree? Am I crazy?
That's why I said week 11 because I feel I'm on the same route that you are as well. As I feel like at that point, it could even be at this. They could be have moved on to the second rookie by then. So it may not just be a rookie quarterback. It might be the second rookie quarterback that comes in during the season. So I think you're right on that one. And to me, Baltimore just has way too much value later in the year.
They also host the Jets, they host Pittsburgh, and they host New England.
Mhm.
So I get it. They're the best pick this week by a lot, but I have a lot of confidence in the team that I am picking. I want to hear what you say, Aaron.
I don't think as many people are going to pick this one because I feel like people are still going to go chalk because they still don't really know what they're going to get in the NFL. But I feel comfortable-ish. I'm not a big fan of this quarterback, but I'm still going to pick him anyways because I just feel like his team overall is just much better, and I don't get the value later, and I'm going to do what you should do in a, you know, in a survival league. And that's just, you gonna have to just go for it and jump off the cliff once and hope that there's net down there. And I'm going Arizona.
Look at that. So you're going with the Arizona Cardinals, the guy who's been slamming Kyler Murray all the last 2 weeks.
I'll
Well,
probably get burned.
he was under the weather supposedly in week one, and so he should at least be well in week two. Aaron, for me, it came down to how big a risk do I want to take,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, I could take almost no risk this week and pick Baltimore. I can go out on the limb and do what is arguably the uh the smartest um daring pick, right? And pick Dallas. No future value. And like you, I'm going to go in between as a compromise and pick Arizona. It's what I said before. I think I really love rooting in NFL Survivor for a team that I feel confident that's going to control the line of scrimmage because things just go well when you can control the line of scrimmage. And I think Arizona's offensive line, looking at what what Jacksonville, and I don't think Jacksonville is a very good team. Jacksonville just completely ran all over them. And the improvements I have talked about in previous shows of Arizona's defensive line, I think should be able to handle Carolina's offensive line. So I'm going to Arizona. I'm going to watch the news, make sure no injuries come up. What it came down for me is, my league is you pick 18 games, right? It goes 18 games, 18 teams. There's 32 teams in the NFL. I'm okay never using Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're in a league where you double up in the last like 4 weeks, so you play 22 teams. There's still 10 teams you don't pick. I'm okay if that is not Dallas. Our pick is Arizona, let's be clear. But Aaron, some of our viewers may have used Arizona in week one.
True.
So, what would your advice be to somebody who says, "Look, I'm in a pool of hundreds of people. I picked Arizona in week one. I didn't listen to you.
Mhm.
I didn't go Denver like you did. I picked Arizona. What?
I would go Dallas.
Whoa!
I would go Dallas for the simple fact that I was surprised at how good Brian Schottenheimer was as a head coach. And I felt like their team was more buttoned up. They did have some miscues with players that you don't normally see. CeeDee Lamb, I guarantee you, he probably won't drop two more balls like that the rest of the year. So it was just bad fluke, but I just was so impressed. They looked like the better team coming out of that rain delay. And Philly just didn't have an answer. And Dak played really, really well. So, and I liked their offense. I felt like they had a good flow, good run game, good pass game. Obviously, those big drops really, really, really hurt their chances of winning the game. But I think Philadelphia, I think they know they got away with one, to be honest.
We cannot be um, lulled in a sense of security of week one. The upsets are coming, folks. They are coming, and people are going to start falling off in Survivor. Between you and me, I hope Cleveland upsets Baltimore. That would be a wonderful thing since we're going with Arizona. And Aaron, thank you so much for
You bet.
joining us. Don't be a stranger.
No,
Well,
I'll come
gotta.
back. Hopefully, I won't come back and Arizona's lost and I'll get ribbed for that. So we'll
Oh
see.
yeah, I think you made the perfect pick because if Arizona wins, you're a genius. If Arizona loses, people will be spending all their time taking shots at me.
There you
So,
go.
so don't you worry.
That's
All right,
awesome.
folks, don't forget, put in the comment section your week one pick. You are not allowed to criticize Aaron or me if Arizona loses unless you put in the comment that you think this is a better pick and tell us why. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. We're having a blast. It's been just 2 weeks, and I'm just so happy the NFL is here and to be able to talk about it with you guys. Until next week, when we look at week three, take care, everybody.